Well, good evening and thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 Plus. I'm Mark Hanrahan. It is election night. Polls just closed in Idaho and the deadline has passed to turn in your ballot here in Washington. And tonight we are following a few races across the inland Northwest. Two big initiatives on the ballot this year are the Spokane Public Schools Bond and the Spokane Parks Levy. While they are separate, the school district and the Parks Department partnering up for this vote. They're calling it Together Spokane. You won't see that name Together Spokane on the ballot, but if both the school bond and the Parks Levy pass, SPS and the parks, they will partner up to complete 200 projects citywide. And some of those projects include a new public aquatic center, more soccer fields and tennis courts, and having community spaces at new schools. If both pass, it would cost the average homeowner here about an extra $8 a month. If only one of the bond or levy passes, they would move forward with individual projects in those respective departments. Well, tonight, SPS and Spokane Parks holding a watch party as the results are announced for the Together Spokane initiative. KREM 2 Shannon Mowdy is live downtown tonight. So, Shannon, what is the feeling out there tonight?
Well, Mark, we've been here at the State Plant Restaurant for about an hour and a half, and we've heard people talking about the bonds and the levy. There's just kind of a general feeling right now of excitement and anticipation and appreciation. We've got some speeches going on right now behind me. Results for both of those tax measures, again, separate on your ballot, are expected to start rolling in any minute now. And we have seen a lot of different people, and Together Spokane has garnered a lot of big names in Spokane supporting it, including Mayor Lisa Brown, former Mayor David Condon, members of City Council. I have seen Council President Betsy Wilkerson, Council members Michael Cathcart, Zach Sapone here. We've got balloons popping behind me. Also State Senator Marcus Michelli here tonight showing his support, and we are expecting to speak to the Spokane School Superintendent Adam Swinyard and Parks Director Garrett Jones tonight once those preliminary results come out. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Shannon, thank you very much. Kind of having a difficult time hearing Shannon with all that background noise in there tonight. But the Together Spokane measure is not the first time Spokane Public Schools has passed or tried to pass a multi-million-dollar bond. So here's a timeline of how we got to this year's ballot. 2018 was the last time voters approved a bond for Spokane Public Schools. Its total amount, $495.3 million. $57.9 million in state matching funds brought its total to $553.2 million. It covered projects including building new middle schools like Carla Pepperzak and Denny Yasahara, along with one Spokane stadium. Last year in 2024 was the next time the school board asked voters to approve a new bond. Its total was $200 million, which was less than half of the bond approved in 2018 and the same amount they're asking for this year. The bond failed during a special election. After a few months of debating, the school district decided not to re-add the bond to the 2024 November general election. They cited unchanged public opinion, the city's potential tax measure, and low positive support. Then, in May of this year, the Spokane Public Schools Board voted unanimously to approve its half of the Together Spokane initiative to be placed on the November ballot. And that brings us to today. So joining me now to talk more about the Together Spokane initiative, Eastern Washington Professor of Political Science, Kevin Perch. Kevin, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's an interesting proposition because it's called Together Spokane, but really it's two different things. It's a school bond and the Parks Levy.
Right. But what they're doing is kind of smart, is like finding those synergies when it comes to the marketing and the campaigning and saying, like, we can, even though they're separate bonds from separate taxing authorities, we're going to try to leverage certain types of, like efficiencies in this, a lot of buzzwords, but,
sure,
get those together so that people can envision just an overall, like, stronger community.
Yeah, they're saying more bang for your buck if both of these items pass. Let's talk about the bond first. $200 million school bond, Spokane Public Schools. The bonds are a bit different because they require more voter support, a 60% threshold of voter approval in order to pass.
Right.
That's a big threshold.
That's a very big threshold. And historically, Spokane voters have been more than willing to reach that threshold and pay for those. That last bond that failed was kind of an anomaly for them. But the state has this belief that, if you're going to be spending that money, the citizens should be really all in on it.
And then the parks levy, $240 million. So together, we're talking $440 million, which is a big chunk of money.
It is a big chunk of money. And, what you see is that they strategically kind of put that all over the city. It's hard, if you look at the maps of where this is going to be spent, it's hard to find a neighborhood where there won't be some kind of park improvement or some school that's getting an improvement. But yeah, it's a lot of money all over the city.
Yeah, you touched on it, but their last bond in terms of the district, that one failed in 2024, did not reach that 60%. Reading into the tea leaves as a professor of political science, what are your thoughts going into tonight? Do you think it has a better chance this go around?
I think it probably does have a better chance. I think that when you fail on these things, you take that seriously as the leaders of those districts, and you probably listen to what the concerns were of the citizens and come back with a stronger, better argument. And you probably don't want to go unless you feel really confident that it's going to pass.
Yeah. Here's kind of another insider politics question I'll toss your way.
Yeah, sounds good.
This is an off-year election. It's not a midterm. It's not a presidential election.
Right.
So there are no congressional races on the ballot. There are local races, and there are different things like bonds and levies. Do you think that helps or hurts? There are fewer things in the ballot this go around.
That's a great question. I think it probably helps.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to see a lot of people who are more likely to be eager and energetic coming out to vote. It's going to be a lower turnout affair. I think that if we hit the 40% mark, that's going to be pretty exciting. The last I saw is we had a turnout of 25%, in the statewide. So, people generally don't turn out to vote no on things. They turn out because they're excited. So that's probably going to help them.
Some of the naysayers that we have heard from throughout this whole process of bringing this initiative to voters is we feel like it's death by a thousand cuts. We're being asked every year to kind of fork out some more money for schools or parks or law enforcement or whatever the case may be. At this time when we're dealing with things like inflation and kind of uncertainty in the economic markets, how's that play into all this?
I mean, that's a very real argument to put forward. This isn't the only tax that you might be facing. There's all sorts of different taxes. It's only $8 for the average homeowner, but for some people they might say this is adding up too much, or they might be saying, I don't have kids in school, or I don't use the parks, and so what's really in it for me?
Yeah,
that's a real possibility.
Well, we should see some initial returns here within potentially the next 10 minutes or so. We usually give results around 8:15 or so.
Yeah.
When those initial results come in, we will certainly pass them along to you, and we'll have a scroll at the bottom of the page tonight updating you on the latest returns that come in. Again, initial returns, not the final ones, but a good indication of how things may settle tonight.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good indication.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. All right, our election coverage continues. In about 2 minutes, we will be taking a look at the top race over in North Idaho. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It is election night, and we are taking a live look at the Kootenai County Elections Office as ballots are being counted tonight. The Coeur d'Alene mayoral race is on the ballot. There are 4 candidates competing tonight. Current Mayor Woody McEvers is running for re-election. He says he's mostly focused on affordable housing and improving relationships with local legislators. Councilman Dan Gookin says he wants to improve communication between the city and the council. Gookin has been on the city council there since 2012. John Pulsifer is a dentist and says he's running because he's unimpressed with McEvers and Gookin's lack of vision for the city. And Debbie Loftman is a relative newcomer to the area, but she says her leadership qualities and business acumen make her a good fit for the job. Voter turnout in Idaho is down from last year. KREM 2's Connor McAvoy reports outside of the Kootenai County Elections Office with more tonight.
Folks have been coming and going to the elections office here in Coeur d'Alene, making sure that their vote is counted for. Staff say one of the biggest races in early voting this election season was the Coeur d'Alene mayoral race, with 4 candidates running for the position. However, they say today they're seeing a lot of last-minute voter turnout for the Post Falls mayoral race and Spirit Lake mayoral and council races. Staff have been pointing last-minute voters to different designated polling places across the county to get their vote in on time. However, the office did take absentee ballots until 8 p.m. They say voter turnout this year is similar to 2023 at roughly 30%. We'll keep you updated with the results for the Coeur d'Alene mayoral race as they become available. In Kootenai County, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
All right, stay with us. Next, we'll take a look at the Spokane City Council seats up for election tonight, plus why the Spokane County Auditor explains why non-presidential elections are still very important to vote in. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our election coverage here on KREM 2 Plus. Well, this year there are 3 city council seats up for grabs in Spokane. Seats in District 1, 2, and 3 are on the ballot. In District 1, incumbent Jonathan Bingle is running against Sarah Dixit. District 2 is an open seat. Councilmember Lily Navarrete stepped down earlier this year due to health concerns. So Alejandro Barrientos and Kate Tellis are running to fill that seat. And in District 3, current councilmember Zach Sapone is running against Christopher Savage. Joining us once again to talk more about the city council races here in Eastern Washington, Spokane specifically, Kevin Perch, professor of political science at Eastern Washington. We touched on this in our previous segment, talking about it's an off year election wise.
Right.
So kind of the biggest races on the ballot are these local races.
Yeah, they really are. It's our chance to, weigh in on what we want our city to look like and how we want our city to act. And behave. Yeah.
In elections, usually, of course, the presidential election and then races for seats in Congress, like the Senate and Congress, U.S. House, those garner the most attention typically.
Yeah.
But these local races, they really have more of maybe direct impact on people's lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely, they do. I often tell my students, like in January when you're wondering why your roads are being plowed or not being plowed or why the potholes are being filled or not, that's all these elections. That's the stuff right
So
there.
they certainly do matter.
Yes, absolutely.
Another interesting question I wanted to toss your way is these city council seats, they're nonpartisan, meaning the candidates don't have to declare a party.
Right.
They're running to represent their constituents. They're not declaring a party.
Right.
But in these current times, it seems like very few things are nonpartisan.
They're nonpartisan in name. Right. That's a thing about Washington State is like we have this history of wanting good governance and this idea that partisanship might not go hand in hand with good governance. So a lot of our local elections are nonpartisan in name, but they're partisan. These people have values and views and beliefs about what policy should look like, and those are partisan kind of ideas.
Talking just about a couple big issues that seem to be on everybody's mind, especially in the city of Spokane, the issue of homelessness and drug use, open drug use in particular, out in public.
Yeah.
It seems like those two things might play a big role in deciding who is elected to these particular seats.
I think that's probably true. I think that seems to be the issue that Spokane citizens are talking about recently. We just had the city council pass a new ordinance last week, I believe, maybe 2 weeks ago.
1 week ago,
addressing the issue of homelessness in downtown and what law enforcement's able to do with that. So I think this really is the issue of the day in Spokane.
Yeah, the Safe and Accessible Public Spaces Ordinance basically increases enforcement and makes sure public, gets rid of camping in public, attempts to, and then make sure public spaces remain safer and open and clear from obstruction.
Right.
Camping on sidewalks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Is there any particular race that you're interested in? I guess the one that pops out to me is District 2 because that one's the open one, right?
That one for me is the interesting one. I mean, they're all interesting, but incumbents generally, there's a safety in being the incumbent. And so what's really interesting is what happens when that incumbent isn't there and it's an open seat. So for me too, that's I'm curious about that one.
And for folks who may not be aware, there are 7 positions on the council. One is the council president who's elected at large.
Right.
The entire city votes on that seat. And then there are 6 others, 3 in each district, 1, 2, and 3.
2 in each district.
Yeah, so 6 total.
Yes, exactly. No
I wasn't
problem.
clear on that. But they serve 4-year terms and then they're staggered. So every 2 years, more will be elected or re-elected or voted out.
Right, that's correct.
The case to be.
Yeah.
Incumbents, as you mentioned, typically do well on re-election, but we will see tonight.
Yeah. You never know. That's why we have elections.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Well, let's talk about our next issue today. Right now, ballots are being counted in Spokane County, and KREM 2's Cody Proctor talked with the county auditor about the importance of this year's election.
If you still haven't voted, it is too late. Those drop boxes are closed, but the work behind me continues to buzz at the Spokane County Elections Office. Now, when it comes to elections like these, voter turnout is always a big topic. Since this is not a presidential election, voter turnout is typically smaller. According to the Washington Secretary of State's office, just over 31% of ballots made it in by 5 tonight to the Spokane County Elections Office. The Spokane County Auditor, Vicki Dalton, hopes to reach at least 40%. She also says these elections in particular are the most important ones.
This is your everyday life. This is what impacts you from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed and even while you're sleeping. These are the people who provide you service every day.
Now, as I mentioned, the work is only beginning here at the Spokane County Elections Office. This is only the initial drop for results, and the work continues to count the rest of them. Those votes will be certified on November 25th. At the Spokane County Elections Office, Cody Proctor, KREM 2 News.
Meantime, in national news, former Vice President Dick Cheney has died. He was 84 years old. Cheney was the 46th vice president, serving alongside former President George W. Bush for 2 terms. His family says Cheney died of complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. He was a driving force behind the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 and was considered one of the most powerful U.S. vice presidents in history. Cheney visited Spokane back in April of 2006. He attended a fundraiser at a GOP Senate candidate and also held a rally for troops at Fairchild Air Force Base. Speaking to about 600 Air Force personnel, Cheney praised them for their service to the country. And then Cheney returned to the inland Northwest for a visit to North Idaho later in 2006. He stopped at the Coeur d'Alene Airport, where he rallied with supporters for about 30 minutes ahead of Election Day. Cheney also spoke of support for the war in Iraq. All right, coming up in the next 2 minutes, a look at the only statewide race in Washington and how it could affect the state's CARES Fund. We're back after a quick break. Welcome back to our election night coverage. There is only one statewide ballot measure in Washington this year. It is called Senate Joint Resolution 8201. The measure would give the Washington State Investment Board permission to invest a portion of the state's long-term care services and supports trust fund into private equities and other stocks. A similar ballot measure was voted on back in 2020, but failed. Going to bring in our professor of political science from Eastern Washington, Kevin Perch, once again. This one's interesting in that it's kind of the only statewide initiative this go around for this election.
Yeah, that was the statewide ones kind of ebb and flow, and some years you're going to get 6, 7, 8, and some years you just get one. And this year we only had one thing on the ballot that they thought was important for us.
Yeah, and it seems kind of like a cut and dry issue. They want to invest some of these funds that are taken from folks' paychecks for the CARES Fund and invest them into the stock market to presumably, hopefully grow them.
Yeah, hopefully the Constitution right now only allows them to invest in things that are really not very risky at all. And the concern is you're not going to get the money you need from those investments to fund all of the CARES Act. So get permission to invest it in something like the stock market.
Yeah, so we'll see how that one comes in.
Yeah.
We have received our first initial results from Spokane County. I'm just looking at them on the computer right now, so I don't have all of them in front of me currently, but we can go through some of the council ones if you want.
Yeah.
So council for District 1, Jonathan Bingle's currently up with 50.98% of the early returns compared to Sarah Dixit's 48.32%. So pretty close race.
Pretty close race, yeah.
And absolutely. I would say that's maybe surprising in that Bingle is the incumbent.
Right.
And Sarah Dixit's a newcomer, basically.
Yeah, she's running a strong race right there. I think it's, we're not going to get any more results tonight, but it's too close to say anything. Not a close race, but, incumbents ahead.
Yeah. And then moving on to Council District 2 in Spokane, Kate Tellis running against Alejandro Barrientos. That's for the open seat that represents kind of the southern portion of the city of Spokane. And Tellis is up pretty handily right now on Barrientos. She has about 60.6%.
Yeah, that's a solid lead right there.
Yeah, and what do you make of that one? They're both, I guess, maybe kind of both similar in terms of ideologically, but I don't know.
Yeah, this was the one that I was most curious about, and I was saying before that I could see it kind of going either way. That there's no polling, so you just kind of have to divine your own ideas behind these things. That's a solid lead at 60%.
Yeah, and one more thing about that. Barrientos has appeared to spend a lot of money on campaigning because he had a lot of TV ads and a lot of ads across town as well.
He was very good at getting out the signage and making his case known to the public. So,
And the other race for District 3, Zach Zapone is the incumbent against Savage. Zapone currently leading 54.52% to Savage's 45 roughly 1%.
Right, yeah. So, right now we got two incumbents in the lead. It's, I think, too early to say anything definitively about that, but, that's kind of where you might expect that to go.
Right. Yeah. We're able to look at the results for Proposition 1 for the city of Spokane, that being the Parks Levy.
Right.
And that one currently appears to be passing with about 54% in favor.
Yeah.
And that's a big one.
That's a big one. $240 million for the parks. So that's it doesn't have to reach that 60% threshold. So that's looking good right now for that.
Yeah, I was going to mention the lower threshold, not 60%. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah.
All right. So our election coverage continues tonight. Again, I'm here with the professor of political science, Kevin Perch, on this off-election year in 2025. Quickly, there are some big, interesting races, not in Washington, but across the country in Virginia and places like that as well. And of course, the mayor of New York City.
New York, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like so far it's kind of a good night nationally for the Democrats. You have the Democrats winning the governor's race in New Jersey, have the governor's race in Virginia, a couple other races in Virginia. It looks like that they won pretty well. So it looks all in all, the governor of New York City, that's a mistake. Mayor of New York City, so it seems like it's a strong night overall for the Democrats.
Yeah. I understand we do have some early returns in from Idaho right now, so let's take a look. Again, these are early returns, so this is not final, but this is what the returns show us so far. So Councilmember Gukin in the lead right now with 38% of the vote so far. McEver's the incumbent, 30%, and you can see Loftman at 21% and Pulsifer at 11%. And then we'll move on to the race for mayor of Post Falls. If you could pull up that graphic, if we have it back there. I'm told we do. There we go. All right, so in the lead right now is Ronald Jacobson with 39%, Scott Haig 31%, and Randy Westland close behind at 30%. All right, moving on to the city of Coeur d'Alene for council member seat 2 right there. Amy Evans, 67%, up pretty big against Jeff Larson with 33%. And then moving on to seat 6 for the city of Coeur d'Alene. Kiki Miller at 57%, J.D. Claridge at 28%, and Bill Brooks at 15%. So some of these numbers starting to trickle in tonight. Always an exciting time on election night at 8 o'clock when the numbers start coming in. So we will continue to process some of these numbers and bring you more of the results coming up tonight on the KREM 2 Night Report. That starts at 10 p.m. over on KREM 2. Hope to see you then. All right. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Perch.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Excellent.
All right. We'll see you guys later over on KREM 2.